Welcome back to Yang Daily. I'll be your host, Alex Cheney, bringing you all the Yang news you need to live your life right. I got so delayed with yesterday's episode that I just combined it with today's, so strap in for a longer one. Quick shout out to our Tier 3 patrons, Peter Park, Shay Meehan, and Nathan Stankowski, as well as all our other patrons. You keep us all informed and engaged. If any of you out there want to join these advocates of humanity first and independent journalism, head on over to patreon.com/YangDaily. It would only take a couple of bucks a month from each listener to keep this podcast and community going and growing into the future. Now on to the news. Starting off with some good news, while the IRS expressed some reluctance for monthly payments from the child tax credit reform, they have now confirmed that they are prepared to issue monthly checks for the new child allowance. They also confirmed the checks will begin this July. We've established that the government can send checks to everyone. We've established that it doesn't cause inflation or have to be attached to taxes. And now we've established the infrastructure. All the building blocks of UBI are falling into place. All that is left is to expand those monthly checks to all adults. Actually, there is one other thing, and that's to make the child allowance permanent. A new petition by high school teacher Carrie calls for exactly that and could use your signature. Link in the podcast description. Pelosi also recently suggested that this, along with permanent paid family and medical leave and lowering drug costs, will be the next priority of Congress after the American Jobs Plan. California's forestry services, like some other states, are finding unprecedentedly dangerous fire conditions from lack of rain. The moisture levels of trees in the state are at all-time lows, making for perfect wildfire conditions. It may become necessary to establish some infrastructure for manually watering enormous stretches of forest, maintaining extensive fire breaks, or other Herculean efforts to avert the massive wildfires that are becoming more and more common, due in large part to climate change. You may recall the case of Jacob Blake being shot 7 times in the back for reaching for something in his vehicle, paralyzing him from the waist down. The officer who shot Blake has now been returned to active duty and has not been charged with any wrongdoing. So that happened. I don't even know what to say at this point except that this kind of justice is what leads to riots. Speaking of, federal prosecutors have also announced that no charges will be filed against Ashley Babbitt, the insurrectionist who was shot attempting to climb through the last remaining barrier between Trump's mob and congresspeople in the Capitol. This has set off a fresh wave of absolutely moronic false equivalence arguments from Trump loyalists equating Babbitt's shooting to those like Blake's. The difference, of course, being that the others were shot when non-lethal means were appropriate, when the victim was alone, and when they posed little or no threat, whereas Babbitt was shot leading a rabid, violent, anti-democratic mob through the last barrier between them and the elected representatives that they were explicitly hunting. Not exactly someone running away or reaching into their car or playing in a park. I fail to see how in that circumstance the officer had any less violent alternative to protect our Democratic representatives from the terrorist attack. So I am A-OK with this ruling. Jonathan Colbreth put together a great article in the American Conservative explaining modern monetary theory that I recommend. It lays out well that MMT is simply an acknowledgement that the federal government prints money and that inflation is a supply-demand relationship, leading to the inevitable conclusion that the government does not require a balanced budget. Spending is not limited by taxation, but by inflation, and inflation can be managed in many more ways than taxation, including by increasing production. One point made that I like is that because the deficit just measures how much more money the government has put into the economy than it's taken out, you could just as well call the federal deficit the people's surplus. I like it. Check out the full article in the links. Good one to share. Big news from Canada, Liberal Party delegates at their policy convention passed a motion to adopt a true nationwide UBI into their platform with 77% of the vote. It is now the number 2 priority out of 26 policies in the Liberal platform. Even though I don't live in Canada, this is extremely exciting. Major parties in multiple countries are seriously committing themselves to the most revolutionary policy of our time, and I could not be happier to be a part of it. I hope you all feel the same. Let's not fall behind here in the US. We have a real chance to get a temporary UBI into the infrastructure bill which would almost certainly lead to a permanent UBI. It is time to fight like hell. I'm happy to report that Evelyn has now received her first shot of the vaccine and also that Scott has received his second. I'll rest a bit easier knowing that Andrew, Evelyn, and Scott are protected. Evelyn also wore her retro Yang shirt to the appointment to rep her rebel boyfriend. Love it. Also, if you or someone you know has reservations about the vaccine, check the article and video in the links below. The video explains exactly how the vaccines work and how they've been in development for 50 years. The article debunks anti-vaxxer myths and provides the effectiveness and side effects data. The Super Yang duo of Andrew and Evelyn will be hosting a fundraiser tomorrow, the 14th, where participants can ask them anything, and presumably get an answer as well. Fulfill your dream. Grab a ticket at the link below. The Data Dividend Project and Humanity Forward will also be hosting a discussion tomorrow on Clubhouse regarding data privacy and consumer choice. And finally, if you are in or near New York City, don't forget that you can always go to mobilize.us/Yang for NY to find all the events going on for the Yang campaign, and there are a lot of them. Phone banking, canvassing, Yang hangs, both virtual and in person. There are dozens happening in just the next couple of days alone. If you want to spend some quality time with fellow Yang Gang while helping get Andrew elected, Mobilize is the place to be. And that'll do it for today's Yang Daily. Bookmark and share the IRS monthly payments, the child allowance petition, the dry forests data, the MMT article, the Lib Party UBI adoption, the vaccine info, and the Mobilize events. Flood Congress with calls, tweets, faxes, and letters using the ResistBot or Income Movement Easy Contacts below. If you need help, consult Humanity Forward, the Income Movement Aid Database, the Mission Asset Fund, or United Way, and don't forget to Yang Daily.